Here we've got Calvin Connor with the Snorlax block deck, Vinicius Fernandez with the Giratina Comfey deck. Snorlax block, I'm so ready to be obliterated. I mean, it's easy enough to get around with the switch carts and everything, but I guess you got to respect it as one of those decks that is definitely here. And if you don't do something about it in your deck, you're gonna run into it inevitably at some point. So this is the Swiss round 13 at the Charlotte, North Carolina event, regional event. So right here, okay, so Snorlax block is running the Rotom. This is honestly the biggest hit. The Jet Energies, the 2 Jet Energies. Go back to that for a sec. This right here is a bigger hit because those 2 Jet Energies are going to be really crucial for this Snorlax block deck. That might hurt. And then you got 1 Giratina V-Star. And then what you never want to see in a Lost Zone deck, is a Colress's Experiment that lets you draw 5 cards, put 3 in your hand and 2 in the Lost Zone, because the Lost Zone decks are all about building up the number of cards you have in your Lost Zone, which is like the discard pile that you could never get anything from. You want to build those up to unlock different abilities so that you can play certain cards that require X amount of cards in the Lost Zone to be able to play. Or there's even some Pokemon that will have certain attacks where you have to be able to get so many cards in the Lost Zone to be able to do that attack. And one of these is Star Requiem, which is Giratina V-Star. You can't, it's kind of hard to see, but it says that you have to have 10 cards in the Lost Zone to be able to do the attack, and the attack lets you get an instant knockout on whatever Pokemon your opponent has. So that type of attack is going to be crucial. So you really don't want to see Colress's Experiments in there. And like I said, Jet Energies for the Snorlax block deck. That's going to be quite crucial for them, for sure. All right, so we've got our initial Snorlax out there. So Snorlax is going to lock in whatever is in your opponent's active. So you can't retreat, but you can use things like Jet Energy, or you can use Switch Cart or a Switch or Escape Rope, something like that, to get the card in and out of the active. So again, those are going to be super crucial here in the beginning. So it looks like Battle VIP Pass. We're going to bring up...
I've talked about this before with players, when trying to help, people kind of learn what to do against a stall deck whenever you're playing against a control deck. And it's an archetype that is trying to win in an unconventional way, right? You're not taking your normal 6 prize cards to win the game. That's the
get our 2 Giratinas.
It's trying to do something a little bit different, trying to force you to deck out, run out of cards. So Snorlax, a deck that's trying to win in an unconventional way, that means that you need to adjust your game plan going in, and you probably need to play in an unconventional way yourself. Yeah,
that's a great point. So, okay, so he's talking about how unconventional it is that you might bring when you're playing Lost Box, especially the Giratina Lost Box. Typically, you're trying to get Comfeys out on the field so that you can get Cramorant as your early attacker, because if you get 4 cards in the Lost Zone, you can use Cramorant for no energy to do 110 damage, which is pretty significant. But because Snorlax is such an unconventional deck, you really want to play unconventionally, where instead of doing the conventional bringing out Cramorant, getting the Comfeys, all that, Fernandez is opting to bring out the Giratinas instead, which has an attack that can help get some things into the Lost Zone, but it also gets those attackers out, because that Calvin over here, he's not going to attack at all. So you can't get knocked out. Your Giratinas aren't going to get knocked out, so might as well go ahead and get them on the bench. So we see Calvin here. He's now getting the Snorlaxes out. He is getting he's getting Path to the Peak out of the way. Fernandez put down Path to the Peak, which would stop Calvin's Rotom from being able to use its ability. So he's like, get that out of here. He put down a Temple of Sinnoh. And now we have the Hisuian Heavy Ball that's going to be discarded, looks like. We're discarding the Hisuian Heavy Ball.
On Vinny to find the way to take some prizes when Calvin Connor's doing his utmost to stop that from happening.
Yeah, and the Giratina V is certainly the most important and best attacker in this matchup. It's got the excellent Shred attack for 3 energy. It deals 160 damage, which is enough to knock out the Snorlax. Of course, the Bravery Charm does make it so that it forces...
Yeah, so you can see there, Shred does 160 damage. You can also use Abyss Seeking, which I said earlier is going to help you get 2 in the Lost Zone. So it says look at the top 4 cards, put 2 of them into your hand and 2 into the Lost Zone. And so it allows you to do damage, but also get things in a Lost Zone as well. So there's the Rotom. Okay, he was doing an Ultra Ball, getting rid of... no, he was using Hisuian Heavy Ball. Oh, to get his Rotom. That's what he was doing. So Hisuian Heavy Ball, go get the Rotom, put it down so he can use the ability, because he'll draw 3 cards, and that will end his turn. It goes back to Fernandez.
We're back over to Vinny's side. Flower selecting. There's a lot of things that you're loving to throw away into the Lost Zone with this deck in this matchup, and one of the things is basic Pokemon. You know, that's a huge win condition potentially for Cal, is to use an Erica's Invitation to catch Vinny with a Manaphy or a Radiant Greninja, something along those lines in his hand, bring it to the active spot, something that cannot attack, cannot do damage, and then force Vinny to burn more resources, exhaust more resources, switch cards, those jet energies in order to get that Pokemon out of the active spot.
Yeah, Vinny, after looking through the deck, knows what the deal is. There's 2 jet energies in the prizes, Temple of Sinnoh currently in play.
Yeah, so what they're talking about there is the fact that one of the win conditions could be that Calvin just bosses orders up a Comfey, which can't really attack. You're not really going to attack with a Comfey, and could just win by making, like, forcing you to keep these basic Pokemon in the active that can't really attack, and you exhaust your switch carts and things like that. And so that's actually a really good point here. So another good point as to why to bring your Giratinas up so early when you're going against Snorlax block and you are piloting a Giratina Lost Box deck. But let's say you were using, you know, the Lost Box Roaring Moon deck or Lost Box Charizard. Again, you would want to think about bringing up your attackers out first instead of your conventional Comfeys and things that could end up getting stuck in the active, and you're trying to figure out how to get them out of the active so that you can attack Snorlax. I really see what Fernandez is doing here. This is nice.
Have plenty of options, different things to play with.
Yep, and switch card kept 100% of the time here, getting rid of Giratina V-Star into the Lost Zone. And of course, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so you had a Giratina V-Star on the flower selecting, and then he had a switch cart. Again, in this matchup, you need the switch cart more than you need the Giratina V-Star.
In order to get an attack off, right? You don't want to be using one of those precious switch cards for a turn that you're not putting damage into play.
Right, even though the Temple of Sinnoh has taken the jet energy off the table, the fact that Vinny was able to start this Comfey in the active has given him this additional drip feed of resources that has ended up in this situation with the double Giratina V set up. Now with Path to the Peak to get rid of the Temple of Sinnoh, there's the jet energy attached for turn, bringing Giratina V into the active and set up to begin.
Okay, so that's an important thing. So if we back up just a bit, he had the let's see, yeah. So Calvin had Temple of Sinnoh, and what that does is it stops jet energy. Jet energy is a special type of energy, and so it allows it, whatever Pokemon you put the jet energy on your bench, it allows it to go immediately to the active. The reason Calvin played Temple of Sinnoh is to say, Temple of Sinnoh says, all special energy attached to Pokemon provide 1 colorless energy and have no other effect. So it basically cut off that like switching capability. And so one of the things that Fernandez did here was before he placed down the jet energy so that it would have the effect that he wants, he's going to put down Path to the Peak here, get rid of the Temple of Sinnoh, and now jet energy will do what he wants of getting that Giratina into the active.
We will see 160 damage laid on this Snorlax. It does only have 150 hit points, but that Bravery Charm allowing it to hang on. Just 40 HP remaining. Now will Cal respond with the
160 damage under the Snorlax, but because of the Bravery Charm, it adds 50 more. So now he has
control and stall decks. You're fine if your opponent takes 5 prize cards. You just can't let them take
180, so 20 more damage that he can do.
You just got to kind of figure out where the right time is to allow that to happen, because you want to activate your counter catchers to try to bring this Comfey back.
Really good effort from Fernandez here.
Active, whether it likes it or not, Chip. And what I like too now that Vinny has got the Giratina V in the active, got that first shred off. It is going to be
all right. So you can see Calvin responded with another Temple of Sinnoh to get the Path to the Peak out, because again, with Path to the Peak being out, he can't use Rotom to draw 3 extra cards at the end of his turn. But also he needs to cut off those special energies like jet energy that can get things from Fernandez's bench onto the active. And so a good turn as a return call of like, okay, yeah, you took out Temple of Sinnoh, I'm going to take out your Path to the Peak. I mean, it's kind of going back and forth. I don't know what the deck list is here, so I don't know how many Temple of Sinnohs he's running. I would imagine he's probably running 3 or 4. But I imagine that Fernandez only has 2 Path to the Peak, so that could be the only Path to the Peaks we see here.
Right? How much time do I have to stall out this game? How much pressure does Vinny actually have after expending the penny? This is already beginning a separate clock, not from the round timer, but the different timing of when do I begin this penny loop? How quickly can I thin down my deck to really get that up and running?
Now, at some point, Vinny will be able to utilize his Giratina V-Star to one-hit KO Snorlaxes with Bravery Charms, but it's really something you got to be careful about when you put it in play. If Vinny was to utilize Giratina immediately right here, he would almost certainly lose the game. He would just run out of energy cards, because Lost Impact forces you to Lost Zone 2 energy attached to your Pokemon every single time you utilize it. And that's a pretty poor trade-off when you're only getting 1 prize card. So at some point in the game, this Giratina V-Star will likely come into play.
Yeah.
With like a boss's orders on the Rotom V in order to take 2 prize cards. But
so this is all about energy and resource management, because as they were saying with Vinny's Fernandez's energies here, he would have to be careful with the V-Star, because the V-Star card Lost Impact could one-hit KO the Snorlax, no problem, even with the Bravery Charm. But it says to discard 2 energies, and that's a problem. You could Super Rod them back in, but if you only have a certain number of Super Rods, that could also be a problem. So you have to kind of keep that in mind when you're working against these decks.
Speaking of which, though, Vinny having to discard one of his jet energy, that's actually his last one available to him right now, the other 2 being in the prizes.
So the potential to bump the Temple of Sinnoh to get another Pokemon into the active, slowly shrinking down. And now Calvin Connor also has that hand knowledge. I see you've got 2 switch cards there, my friend. Now I can begin to adapt and adjust my game plan around that. If there is potentially an Iono to shuffle those back into the deck, just to deny those switch cards, make them additional prey for Misfortune Sisters, then Vinny ends up in a weird situation of something stranded in the active and no way to move it, and that's the deck out scenario that Cal wants.
Yeah, so what happened there is Sydney was used. Your opponent reveals their hand, discard up to 2 of any combination of Pokemon tool cards, special energy cards, and stadium cards from it. So he forced him to discard the 2 jet energies, which he's not going to be able to get those back. Well, that's a huge hit. The good thing is that he does have 2 jet energies in the prize cards, so he will be able to use more if he can start taking prizes, if Fernandez can start taking prizes. So again, Sydney, a great card for these control stall decks where you're really just trying to, honestly, you're just trying to make them lose all the cards in their deck so that they deck out, they can't draw anymore, and you win that way. You're not trying to take any prize cards. You're not trying to do anything like that. Yeah.
Exactly what Cal was hoping for. He's going to end this turn, as he usually does with the Rotom V, drawing 3 additional cards. Vinny, not being disrupted last turn, is going to just continue to attack. And we're going to get to a point in this game where it's going to be pretty straightforward what Vinny's doing every single turn. Draw and attack. Now, Cal did gain the hand knowledge from Vinny. You know, saw that basic Radiant Greninja in his hand and is going to combo that with the Erica's Invitation on the following turn. This was his ideal opportunity to bring that Pokemon down and bring it into the active spot.
Especially after getting rid of that jet energy with the Sydney, having the Temple of Sinnoh sticking in play for so long. After seeing the hand, is confident this is the right time to send out that invitation, and Radiant Greninja is now in the active spot. There is 3 water energy in this deck chip, but that Radiant Greninja is not going to be doing anything anytime soon.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be so sure. There's a basic water energy in the hand, and, you know, Mirage Gate could, you know, lead us to some Moonlight Shurikens to take multiple prize cards. That is something that Vinny could go for. That is a pretty extensive use of his resources, however. We'll see if he does choose to go that route, and with this Super Rod being played, I think there's a shot we're going to see it.
Let me see. The hand has gotten so big, I'm losing track. That's Mirage Gate number 3, if I'm not mistaken.
And we do see the 2 energy cards going onto the active spot. You know, Vinny does have 2 Super Rod available to him, and this is really nice for Vinny because it's going to take 2 Snorlax out of play.
So,
prize cards, but
what happened there was Mirage Gate was used. Because he has 7 cards in the Lost Zone, he can use the Mirage Gate item. That Mirage Gate item allows you to take 2 energies, but they have to be different types of energies, and put them on your Pokemon any way you like. So what he's opting for here is to go for using Radiant Greninja to do, I think, a 2 prize knockout. It does. Radiant Greninja's attack would do 90 to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. So I think he could do 90 here and 90 here and knock out both Snorlax.
Almost more importantly, he's getting rid of 2 Bravery Charms. If he can limit those, I mean, they're a lot harder to get back than something like the Snorlax. You can put Snorlax back into the deck as Cal pretty easily with something like Super Rod, with something like the Team Yell's Cheer, and then get them right back within that.
This is a big play.
But with those 2 Bravery Charms going,
but he does have to discard 2 energies, which again is hard to do.
Yeah, was this a misstep from Calvin Connor going for the Erica's Invitation? Maybe pulling the trigger on that a little bit too soon? Well, I didn't think the Radiant Greninja was going to pull it off either.
Yeah, the Radiant Greninja was able to get there. I mean, Cal did have perfect knowledge of Vinny's hand, right? So he had to have known that it was pretty possible, and he has definitely played this matchup a lot, so I have to assume...
So yeah, 2 prize cards. That's going to really help him.
But for now, you know, it doesn't matter that you lose 2 Bravery Charm necessarily. You know, you can get them back with something like the Silene later on, but he does still have the 1 more Bravery Charm, which we see attached now to the active Snorlax, but also a luxurious cape to boost the HP of another additional Snorlax later on. And, you know, this play from Cal, you know, by bringing up this Greninja, allowing Vinny to go for the 2 prize cards, it does force a pretty large expenditure of resources, right? Vinny had to use the Super Rod, had to use a Mirage Gate, and that's really what these matchups come down to. It is a true resource war, and both players being aware of what the other one has access to.
Yeah, and maybe that is Cal Connor just kind of ripping off the Band-Aid there. Like, this Moonlight Shuriken is going to happen eventually. The longer I wait, the more likely it becomes. I'm going to give the two prizes now, get those, you know, energies discarded to the discard pile due to Moonlight Shuriken's effect, and now you're on a Super Rod to get those back if you want to try again.
So Vinny here has the Giratina V-Star, and he has Boss's orders, so... You know, he could go aggressive after the Rotom V on Cal's bench. I don't really expect to see that just yet. We also could see a world where Boss...
Yeah, that's a good call out. I mean, so this Rotom V is a 2 prizer that's sitting on his bench. So if he can get... Yep, so because he brought Rotom V up, he can now retreat as much as he needs. And then you can do a knockout, I think, for 280. Yeah, so he can knock out Rotom. And now he's just got 2 prize cards left. I mean, he's really done the resource management here to... Yeah, so Counter Catcher brings up... So now, because Snorlax is in play, Greninja is locked in place. And that is unfortunate right now.
Find an additional luxurious cape, as you mentioned, potentially to bolster the HP of this final Snorlax.
Yeah, I think what Cal needs to do here is buy time. So we're probably going to see him go for an Iono, try to slow Vinny down, you know, comboing the Iono with the Counter Catcher, bringing the Greninja into the active spot. This Iono is going to leave Vinny with just 2 cards, so it's going to give Cal some time to reestablish, build his hand back up, and find more things to work with, because the game is, you know, pretty much set on the board for Vinicius at this point. He needs to Lost Impact 1 more time, and then Star Requiem, use that V-Star power 1 more time. That's 2 more prize cards. That wins the game for Vinny. So Cal needs to buy the time, get to a point where he can reestablish, and that's exactly what has happened. Vinny can only draw a card and pass.
And earlier, we kind of saw this same idea chip, but Comfey was in the active. Having that extra flower selecting was so important, not only to see an additional card every turn, but to get rid of your dead draws. Silene now coming through double heads.
Very nice. That's going to allow Cal to choose 2 cards from his discard pile, placing them on top of the deck in whichever order. So he's going to guarantee to be able to draw them. Temple of Sinnoh and Sydney being levied right away, deciding which route he wants to go, though.
Yeah.
And this is what the eventual loop is going to come down to. This is how Cal prevents himself from decking out. Now, he does have a Pidgeot V. That's a pretty easy way to ensure that you don't deck out as well. But the combination of Silene...
That is nice. The Silene... Flip 2 coins, put a number of cards up to the number of heads. So in this case, he got double heads. So that's 2 heads, 2 cards from your discard pile on top of the deck in any order. And that's huge because then you know what's coming your next turns. Yeah, that's a crazy card. Regulation F too, so it's going to be here for a while.
plus Pow Pad, plus Team Yell's Cheer. You know, the Team Yell's Cheer puts back the Silene. The Silene can get you back any cards, and then if that all fails, you can use Pow Pad to put back both Silene and the Team Yell's Cheer at the same time.
Gotcha. So once that loop is up and running, you just take the card that your opponent hates most, and you keep playing it over and over again.
Awesome.
And it's all down to, again, these switch cards. Temple of
Yeah, so the Lost Zone is important to these Lost Zone decks because certain cards are... so the question, let me, I don't think y'all can see the chat. Caleb asks, can you briefly explain why he wants cards in the Lost Zone? The Lost Zone is what enables certain abilities on Pokemon and also allows you to play some item cards. So, for instance, Mirage Gate, which we talked about a minute ago, you have to have 7 cards in the Lost Zone, which this is his Lost Zone right here, and they also keep up with it on screen of how many they have in the Lost Zone here, the top right. And so with Mirage Gate, it will allow you to play the card if there's 7 in the Lost Zone, and that allows you to go get 2 energies, but they have to be different types, and put them on any Pokemon you want that you have. So that's an example of an item. An example of an ability is Cramorant, which isn't out on the field right now, but Cramorant's ability says if you have 4 cards in the Lost Zone, then your energy, you don't have to use any energy to do an attack for 110 damage. So you can attack for free without having to have any energy on Cramorant if you have 4 in the Lost Zone. If you don't, it takes 3 energy to do the attack. So that's why these Lost Zone decks are so like bent on getting cards into the Lost Zone as much as they can, as fast as they can, because it unlocks a lot of the gameplay for them.
Out and play. Vinny running very low on energy right now after using that lost impact to KO the Rotom V. Sent 2 energy to the Lost Zone.
Iono, both players shuffle, put the cards at the bottom of from their hand to their deck. Draw however many prize cards. This is important too, because this is the right time to use an Iono, and the Iono is so strong with these decks like Snorlax because again, they're not taking any prizes, so they have 6 prizes, which means because of the Iono, Calvin can draw 6 cards, but your opponent has to shuffle, put it at the bottom of their deck, and then they draw only 2 cards because he's got taken 4 prize cards, so he's only got 2 prize cards left, but he's only going to draw 2. And it makes their chances of having something to play much less.
Ready. Now, Cal has put Rotom V in play yet again. That does leave an opening for Vinny to close out the game, but it's very
that's a 2-prizer right there on the bench. So if
plus an energy card or a
if Fernandez were to knock out the 2-prizer, then
there's the boss. There is the stadium as well, and the stadium is going to be discarded from the effect of Sydney.
Okay, so Sydney allows him to put down a special energy or stadium in the discard. So he saw the path to the peak, and he was like, all right, I'm going to choose Path to the Peak to go into your discard.
This deck so much. Right now, what's the option? Penny has to come through to get this Rotom V out of play before Vinny can get this Radiant Greninja out of the active spot.
At some point, yes, but Cal should know that he doesn't really have too much to worry about at this moment. There's not really one card that Vinny can top deck that gives him the instant win, right? You know, maybe an escape rope, something like that. We know Vinny doesn't play escape rope, but Cal might think that there's an escape rope. If Vinny top decks an escape rope, he can flower selecting into a switch card, into boss, into an energy, something like that to try to win the game. But it's pretty unlikely that Vinny would find any one card to get him the win based on the other cards that Cal saw from the Sydney.
Okay, I see. So Arvin grabs for a Seal Stone, another big reason to put the Rotom V in play so that it can carry that powerful tool, use Star Alchemy, find that additional missing card. You need to put the, you know, put the rest of your turn together. And is this going to be a resource that Calvin sits on right now, or is there a card that he wants immediately that you can envision, Chip?
You're probably going to sit on it for just a moment, and pretty soon he's going to want to start playing.
What did Fernandez just pull?
Enough to draw into from this Rotom instant charge.
Got 9 in the Lost Zone. Oh, switch card.
Want to try to get rid of those switch cards, but Vinny finding a switch card at nearly the perfect time. This flower selecting does hit a Super Rod and a Colress Experiment, 2 pretty good cards. Now, this is
probably keep the Colresses.
Cards in the Lost Zone after flower selecting, so that means that
no. Okay, so he dumps the Colress's Experiment and keeps the Super Rod.
It doesn't quite have everything. If he has a Mirage
puts
Gate
3.
Right now, Boss's Orders brings up the Rotom. Mirage Gate
Okay, so he used Super Rod to put 3 energies from the discard pile back to his hand.
Yeah, I think that Vinny is on 1 copy of Mirage Gate left, if my count is right.
Yeah.
So he played 2, 1 got Lost Zoned, right? Or maybe no, 1 got discarded from Misfortune Sister, so there's 3 in the discard pile.
And so this is the race of Vinny gets Mirage Gate.
Penny as quickly as he could possibly do it.
Frame 1, Rotom V, Counter Catcher brings that Radiant Greninja back into the active spot, trying to buy even more time. So now at the very least, no 2 prize Pokemon in play.
It just keeps going back and forth pretty quickly here.
Is an energy card.
So
he was 1 card away from just winning the game instantly because he could have bossed up the Rotom, attached the energy card to the Comfey, retreated, used the Star Requiem, and won the game. Literally 1 card away from Vinny just winning this game number 1, and he doesn't find it.
And now this is pretty awkward, as you mentioned, Chip, right? Where the Giratina V using the Lost Impact, Lost Zoning energy is pretty awkward now. After that Super Rod, Vinny still needs to draw into those energies that were shuffled into the deck because
so he's kind of looking through to see what he's played, what his opponent has played in the discard piles.
Greninja out of the active, and needs to find 1 more energy for the Giratina V to do that.
And now we're going to see the Misfortune.
Misfortune Sisters. This is terrible. So Misfortune Sister says, look at the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck and discard any number of item cards you find there, which is terrible because your switch cards, your switch carts, those are all going to be items that they can just discard out of your hand. And then you shuffle. That sucks.
And I think that means that Vinny's on
switch card getting discarded is rough.
We see 2 right there. 1 was played last turn, of course. Ooh, there are 2 switch cards remaining, actually. So that is pretty nice for Vinny. Let's see, 1 Jet Energy in the discard pile. So there's still a few of those remaining. We know there were a couple prize, but now Vinny, I think, has taken both of them out of his prize cards.
That is rough.
Potentially in the hand and shuffled back in from the Iono. I did see 1 in the hand there, Chip. And this resource battle is getting pretty down to the wire. Path to the peak, bumps Temple Sinnoh. That means the Jet Energy will be employed to bring Giratina V-Star.
Okay.
Star Requiem is online. Don't have to worry about this Bravery Charm on the Snorlax. Just take prize number 5.
It could be the Lost Impact as well, just Lost Zoning the Jet Energy here and then the Grass Energy here. We'll see which route Vinny decides to go for. It will be the Star Requiem. 1 prize card remaining. Can Cal
Star Requiem, so it's a 1 prize card.
No, that's going to be one of his first cards played.
Counter Catcher, Radiant Greninja getting bullied. Back into the active once more. Vinny has a couple more shots to get this Radiant Greninja.
Temple of Sinnoh, so Jet Energies. So you put down Temple of Sinnoh, which means special energies like Jet Energy don't do the special thing where for Jet Energy it helps it go from the bench to active.
Not work.
He's not sure what else to play though. I think he's hesitating.
Just 1 prize card needed. Oh, that's pretty huge. Hitting the Giacomo.
Wow.
To Lost Zone the energy. That would have been
Giacomo, discard a special energy from each of your opponent's Pokemon. Wow. Oh, wow. So, in order to do the attack, Giratina needs 3 energies. One of them was a Jet Energy, which is a special energy. So Calvin played Giacomo, which I've not actually seen this card, but it says discard a special energy from each of your opponent's Pokemon. So if your opponent had a lot of special energies, you play this, you knock off that energy. Now Fernandez is in a tight spot because he has to find another energy. I think he's got a switch card in hand. He has to find another energy to be able to pull off the knockout and have the switch card.
Decent argument to actually go for the Lost Impact last turn. Vinny here does find the Polaris. We'll be able to look at the top 5. Does he find a switch card?
No switch card.
Yeah, just a Counter Catcher. Not gonna be able to do anything with that. Nest Ball, not doing much.
Has nothing really in there. A Counter Catcher.
Yeah, for Vinny, I think the 2 Pokemon to put down would probably just be the 2 cards to put down would just be the 2 Pokemon. They're the basic Pokemon, the Comfey and the Giratina V.
Alright, he gets rid of Counter Catcher and I think Comfey.
Maybe thinking that's not too bad. That gets Erica's invitation out. Of course, that Greninja already being in play is all Cal really wants to do. Look at that, so many energy cards in the deck. 2 switch card in there as well. 1 Jet Energy, I see. No Mirage Gate. Yeah, no path.
Okay, so he's got the switch card.
4 path in this list.
And yeah, Vinny had opened up the game with that path initially, trying to.
He's got a switch card in the deck.
Rotom V and immediately gotten that bump by Temple of Sinnoh.
And all 4 paths are in the discard pile. So those Jet Energy are not out to get a Giratina V-Star into the active spot. So Vinny needs to, at some point, draw into a switch card and an energy card so that he can lost.
Yeah, switch card and energy. They're in his deck. The question is, can he pull it?
So that's the win con, folks. It is the Misfortune
Sisters. It could still happen here. 2 cards from Radiant Greninja. There's an energy card, but no switch.
Okay, so he's got the energy.
Those switch cards remain in the deck, the higher chance for Cal Connor.
So he just needs a switch card to win.
Pidgeot V attaching Forest Seal Stone.
Pidgeot V, Forest Seal Stone.
Put those key supporters back in the deck. Going to be Misfortune Sisters and a Penny being eyeballed. Iono as well. Great choice.
Could grab the Silene, something along those lines, but it will be that Misfortune Sisters, and I think we'll see that V-Star marker flipped pretty soon to just go get the Misfortune Sisters. Cal recognizing the situation, he needs to get rid of those switch cards, but not doing it just yet. Maybe he has another plan up his sleeve.
Yeah, and this is a game of chicken at this point. How long do you want to wait? Do I want to be aggressive with finding these Misfortune Sisters and cycling them to get rid of the switch cards? That's the win condition. That's how Cal Connor wins. I would love for him to go for that right now.
And Cal does have a Misfortune Sisters in the hand already, so not needing to grab one out of the deck.
Okay.
So he can utilize that here if he wants to. He's actually going to choose to go for the Iono, knowing that Vinny has used a couple of turns to amass a decent amount of cards in hand, and off of just this 1 card, decent chance that he's not going to be able to find the win.
And with the one card, especially, Comfey's not in the active, so no flower selecting.
Right.
The odds of that one card being an energy to even activate Radiant Greninja.
All right, so he's going to use the Forest Sealstone to go find one card in his deck. That's what the V-Star power earned it. That V-Star marker overs. Just letting him know, like, hey, I'm using that. And that's what's nice about the ability for Pidgeot is that you can make it go back into the deck. All of it and all the cards attached to it go back into the deck, which is pretty wild. So that way, Calvin doesn't have this 2-prize card sitting on the bench that Fernandez could boss up and win the game. You use the Forest Sealstone, and then you use Pidgeot's ability to get back into the deck, so not sitting there.
Yeah, so Calvin Connor, not only do you need to play your own deck in this matchup, you need to know your opponent's deck inside and out as they're forcing him to play through.
Ugh, that's got to be hard for Fernandez. Homie just needs one switch card to win.
Huge. 5 cards.
Okay, Misfortune Sisters is big because it, again, discard any number of item cards you find there. He's only got one switch card in his deck. If these 5 cards, if any of them are the switch card, then I don't know that Fernandez can win.
From the top, how many switch cards?
No switch cards.
No switch cards.
Where are the switch cards, Starzig?
They are hiding. I can't believe this. They're shuffled in there somewhere. And after
Wow.
one more time,
What a lucky break for Fernandez.
Potentially drawn to the switch card to bring this Giratina V-Star into the active spot. Still needs 1 energy to be found.
Yep, it's a
to
2-card
use that
combo
lost
here to
impact.
win the game. Draw for turn on Vinny's side. Just a pass once again. Cal.
He passes. I didn't see what it was, but apparently it was nothing good. Oh no, another Misfortune Sisters.
Holding my breath right now.
No switch cards in that one too. Holy cow.
And all those energies that were at the top of the deck get shuffled back in.
I think Vinny did hit a switch card in his hand currently, so he's waiting for a game-winning draw.
And that deck is pretty thin. That was 3 energy off the top of that from the Misfortune Sisters. Now shuffled into the deck.
Oh, Fernandez is so lucky right now.
Having to take a moment and rethink this position, try to figure out what to do. All he can afford is a pass. Vinny, the same on his end.
The pressure of every single draw.
Wow.
That the opponent might have. Arvin looking for the deck now. Is there any item or tool that's important from here? Poke Gear?
Yeah,
right?
Poke Gear just to find supporters here moving forward. Cal does eventually need to try to get his loop going. Use that Team Yell's cheer in order to put back maybe some of these Fortune Sisters, get that Silene back. Silene to get back a eventual Palpad as well. He wants to have unlimited access to these resources, but you have to favor Vinny here in this position. He's really just waiting for the one card to draw.
And Cal Connor, right? If he whiffs on Misfortune Sisters, can maybe go for Iono.
Oh, does Vinny have it? He picks his hand up. He's thinking, no, just a pass once again.
Oh, and Calvin drew into the Misfortune Sisters, but didn't play it.
Yeah, holding off. I think he's assuming there's a decent shot that Vinny actually just has a switch card in the hand. That's something he's got to be thinking about. He's only seen 2 switching cards of some sort. They're both in the discard pile, so he's assuming that Vinny has those cards in hand. Maybe Cal here waiting to draw into an Iono, but he actually has Iono in the hand. Here we go, switch card into the Comfey. Let's see it. 2 cards. There's the energy card. Does he have the other switch card? I think he must.
Wow.
Yeah, he's got switch card. Nice. So Fernandez won because he had, I guess he was waiting on the energy. He had a switch card in hand. So he got the energy. He put it down on the Giratina, and then
another couple turns to potentially draw into of finding the Moonlight Shuriken.
Yeah. So he had the Giratina.
Tapping that off with
Nice.
the Giratina V-Star, taking so many prizes all at once and just building up this snowball of pressure and momentum. And
all right, so Fernandez won round 1. Going to or match 1. We'll go into match 2 now. Giratina, honestly, that's the best to have Giratina up there and locked in the active. Because then, look, if they can't counter catch her up another, Comfey or basic Pokemon that can't attack. So I think if you're Fernandez right now, this is a big moment, because what you want to do is make it where maybe you don't even put out Greninja, because again, your Pokemon aren't going to get knocked out by Calvin, because Calvin's not going to attack. He's just trying to block you. So that's not bad at all. Pidgeot, not too bad, not great, but
the Bravery Charm needs to be found, but this is already, even though Calvin has a very similar turn 1 to what he had in game.
So he got the Rotom out of the prize cards. He's using Arvin to get Forest Sealstone and a Battle VIP Pass. Get a Snorlax is out. He's going to get Snorlax up into the active.
start the combat, you're obviously not going to bench multiple. You're just going to get one card in the Lost Zone every single turn. But if you start the Giratina V, you can freely go for that Abyss Seeking turn after turn. And this is the worst, you know.
All right, so back to Fernandez.
Vinny's one starter.
Yeah, and Vinny could just keep this one Giratina V as the only Pokemon in play. You don't have to worry about Snorlax attacking into you. Calvin Connor already, you know, spiraling, looking at the clock, trying to evaluate the situation. How quickly can I play this? How quickly can I thin my hand down, my deck down? Rotom V on the bench will hopefully contribute large amounts to that, but it's looking pretty rough.
Yeah, and you do bring up the clock, Skarszik, which is an excellent point, because that is a huge part about playing Snorlax in tournament play. You know, we're playing Swiss best of 3, so that means in order to, you know, win a set, you've got to win 2 games. And Snorlax, we saw from that first game, it took 35 minutes. We got 15 minutes left on the clock. Not going to be enough time to close out this game number 2. Really, Vinny doesn't really need to feel pressure to do much of anything in this game. He can just play his game.
If you're Vinny, you're not putting out
honestly,
anything but Giratinas.
There's probably not enough time for Cal to deck Vinny out.
The early pressure, right, of starting the Giratina V, combined with, you know, the onus on Calvin Connor to go for blind, potentially Erica's invitation to try to snag something into the active spot just to keep alive from this point is going to be pretty rough, because it takes so long for Calvin Connor's win condition to truly happen. And being at 10-1-1 means that he's piloted against several Giratina Vs, I imagine, very successfully. And it's just at this moment, Vinny had what it took in that final game. Because as we said, Calvin Connor went for the Erica's invitation in game 1, brought the Radiant Greninja up to the active after seeing the Mirage Gate, and I guess just wanted to rip off that Band-Aid, but gave up too many early prizes and too much early pressure before the deck was properly thinned.
Yeah, I'm honestly a little surprised to see that Vinny put down a second Giratina. He did that in game number 1 as well, which I was also a little surprised by. I didn't really say anything about it because I wanted to see what his game plan was. But yeah, the 2 Giratina V is interesting. It does just give your opponent another counter catcher target potentially. You know, you can counter catcher around where your energy are being placed.
Yeah, and now you have to play, you know, splitsies by distributing the energy so that you have 2 attackers rather than just selfishly attaching everything.
Both just getting set up.
The thinking is that Vinny doesn't really care if Cal counter catchers up a Giratina V. You know, worst case scenario, you can just go attach Abyss Seeking, right, and continue to draw through the deck. And ooh, a pretty big Avery here, getting rid of 1 Snorlax at least. It looks like it will be 2 discarded. Vinny drawing 3 cards.
Yeah, Calvin Connor did pick up that
Avery draw 3 cards.
Down to, you know, potentially a read.
If you drew any cards in this way, your opponent discards Pokemon from their bench until they have 3. That's why he had to draw or discard 2 Snorlax.
Not the best Pokemon to hit, but it is better to be in the active than a Giratina V. Now, Cramorant can just freely use that spit and instantly attack every single turn. It's lots
okay, so this is what we were talking about earlier, where Cramorant, so we have the Lost Zone up to 4, which is great. That's what we want. And then Cramorant's ability says if there's 4 in the Lost Zone, you don't have to use any energy to attack. So that's a 110 damage that you can do there, which is fine because you've got 4 in the Lost Zone. So you don't have to use any energy resources to use this to attack. But he's definitely not going to put any Comfey out there. Sure.
Is on your side. You got the win in game 1. I think the Cramorant could certainly just start swinging. The problem here, too, of course, is Pidgeot's Vanishing Wings. You can drop some damage on it and then have that nullified.
Yeah, it does have to be on the bench, however, so that is something to think about. And Vinny's actually going to burn an energy card here. Attach Retreat. That's not too bad. He does still have a Super Rod. Now, 1 did get discarded from the early Misfortune Sisters, but does still have 1 remaining.
Switch Card and Mirage Gate both offered up from the Abyss Seeking, and the Mirage Gate is sent to the Lost Zone.
Ooh, Mirage Gate getting sent is rough.
Trying to keep track here. A lot of switch cards in the hand. The hand is absolutely massive for Vinny. Cal Connor just drawing cards with Rotom V, diligently sticking to his game plan, trying to find the right moment to strand something important in the active spot. Temple of Sinnoh has been hanging out this whole time. Yeah,
uses that Vanishing Wings to throw the Pidgeot back in there. Boss's orders, you know, why wait for your opponent to take a prize card when Boss's orders can just actively and aggressively gust a Pokemon into the active spot.
Forest Seal Stone still an option for Cal Connor. Vinny picking up
Mirage Gates lets him going to go get
now
those.
You can turn on these Giratina Vs so they become true threats.
Giratina Vs.
But at least for now, Cramorant can still put down some pressure and some damage on the Snorlax in the active.
Yeah, is it time to go with the Shred? That would take a knockout here because there is no Bravery Charm on this active Snorlax, whereas Spit Innocently would just be hitting for 110, so could be worth it to go on the aggressive here, which means you're taking a prize card. And
oh yeah, it has the pass of the peak to bump the Temple of Sinnoh so that the Jet Energy attachment brings this Giratina V into the active spot. This saves you a switch card, which is great. And there's the Shred to take 1 prize versus that Snorlax. Calvin Connor promotes the second one. 2 were sent to the discard pile thanks to that early Avery. It's going to be Super Rod here, bringing those Snorlaxes back into the deck.
Yeah, all 3 going back. Of course, 2 discarded from the early Avery. Does need to have a replacement Snorlax if he anticipates this active one going down. Either needs to buff its HP with a tool card or, you know, have another one to replace it and be okay with this one being KO'd. He also needs to find a counter stadium to get rid of the pesky path to the peak so that he can activate his Rotom ability. And sure enough,
yeah, there it is.
Yeah,
so he can use Rotom.
Connor's had to tolerate
bring up the Cramorant
at all this set, has all the Temple of Sinnohs, Bravery Charm now attached to the Snorlax, and Cramorant being brought into the active with Counter Catcher.
I mean, it's annoying because you know, now you got to do 2 attacks to Snorlax with Cramorant to be able to knock it out. But to be honest, I mean, it's still fine.
Just because of the way the best of 3 rules do work, Vinny will be declared the winner, but Calvin Connor's still going to try and get this deck thinned down thanks to Road Humvee, get that loop started, and just get Vinny to deck out.
Right away to the front of his hand, Vinny brings his boss's orders and Giratina V-Star. Are we going to see him go aggressive after the Rotom V on the bench? Pull that to the active spot, take 2 prize cards. Let's see if that is the route he wants to go right away here.
Yeah, with taking 6 prizes as the main win condition of Pokemon, it's difficult for Cal Connor to stop that from just naturally occurring as time passes. As long as you have enough Pokemon with consistent enough damage output,
yeah, so he's going to boss up Rotom, take 2 prize cards. He's just got to get Cramorant out of the active. Yep, so retreating.
Retreat from the Cramorant. We're going to see the 2 prize cards here, and it is important for Vinny to try to take 2 prize cards at some point off this Rotom. The longer he waits, the more likely it is that Cal Connor can just use Penny to pick
he's
that
down
Rotom
to
up.
3.
Actually, Vinny does have Super Rod and Boss's Orders and an Energy in his remaining 3 prize cards.
Yeah, so after taking those 2, he is set up for victory, but Pidgeot V going
He's also up to 10 in the Lost Zone, so, you know, if he's got a Sableye, he could use it to spread 120 damage. That's going to be good.
Combination of tools, special energy, and stadiums, and it looks like a pair of jet energy going down most likely.
Yeah, sees that there's no path to the peak, but still wants to get rid of those jet energies right now. And then, of course, is going to look and see all the switch cards, sees the boss's orders.
All 4 of them, all 4 switch cards in Vinny's hand currently.
Unbelievable. Yeah, so nothing is getting shredded in the active here until an Iono is played, and Cal Connor sees the writing on the wall. How can he adapt to this chip? Is there any hope?
It's definitely
no,
looking
I think
weak
Calvin's
Vinny might just
not
win this game
got this.
outright, and we might not have to worry about the whole, winning game 1, and it's a 1-0 victory.
Yeah, but after Sydney reads the hand, Countercatcher brings up the Cramorant. Vinny can just use a switch card here, bring Giratina
Don't
into the
think he's got it.
The Lost Zone. Star Requiem might be the option. There needs to be 1 more energy attachment somewhere to make Lost Impact online for the final prize, potentially.
Yeah, with 3 prizes remaining, Vinny has to make sure he levels his resources really wisely here. Star Requiem for 1 and then Lost Impact twice. And I think he has exactly enough resources to make that exact play happen. For now, though, he'll try to sneak in a KO with his Cramorant where he can. And this does force Cal's hand a bit. It forces him to play Penny more than likely. It means that he's not going to be able to play something else. But
because of Arvin instead.
Yeah, maybe that means that there's an incoming switch cart in Cal's hand currently. Could be the case.
Yeah, just thinning out the Forest Seal Stone, picks up a Nest Ball, needs to find another basic Pokemon.
And we'll play the Nest Ball right away, just getting another Snorlax to replace this one if it were to go down.
So there's 3 Pokemon in play, 3 prizes remaining for Vinny. This is, he sees the objectives all laid out before him with 3 Bravery Charms. These are pretty respectable, but that's just, Cramorant hits twice, hits twice, hits twice. Is that going to be enough time?
Vinny's going to draw for turn, does have an energy card, can load up 1 more attachment to this Giratina V-Star. And once again, we'll just spit innocently onto the Snorlax. Cal has a Penny in hand, already bringing up a counter catcher, and he's going to bring up this Giratina V. Yeah, this is what I was kind of meaning. Yeah. Now, this is going to be, I think, fine for Vinny. We know he has a million switch cards in his hand, and that's exactly what we're going to see here, but Cal is forcing him to expend those resources.
Ooh, and opts for the Giratina V-Star. Now with the additional energies in play, goes for Lost Impact.
It's going to be 1 prize card drawn here. Does hit the energy.
Down to 2.
2 out of 3 prize cards there for Vinny were pretty good. The boss, not super useful now at this point, I would say, but either Super Rod or the basic energy is pretty good. Cal, right away, uses that boss, passes back over to Vinny.
Yeah, I think Vinny's got this. He's just got to get the...
I'm going to go down to you having 1 prize card remaining. Go for the Iono to 1 strategy.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're going to have to see, but I think Vinny is in a decent shot to just close this one out here. Cal having to go for a counter catcher plus a Iono play almost definitely does hit the Iono from this Pokegear 3.0.
That is very fortunate. Vinny with a massive hand. We know that all the switch cards are in hand. And especially after drawing that energy from the prize cards, that's going to be shuffled down to the bottom of the deck.
Yeah, and after playing Sydney as well, Cal is totally aware of what Vinny has access to in this hand. So Iono to 1 is going to be the play. And it's going to be the waiting game here. I think Cal probably knows the situation, knows that he's unlikely to win this game, regardless of time. Vinny may just win the game naturally, but that's a pretty good draw, honestly, finding that.
Iono down to 1 card.
Corvus'
experiment to get, I bet he gets it here.
Calvin was really hoping to have more time than this to build up a hand, to build up the resources, but a Chorus off the top really negates the Iono, and plenty of energy is to be had.
Yeah, and we do know
energy there. He's going to draw more.
Deck, so he's not going to find them. So actually, even just choosing to go for the pass, not even worried about Abyss Seeking. 5 cards from the top from Misfortune System. Mirage Gate being discarded, but no switch cards. And honestly, this is pretty solid for Vinny because it shuffles the deck. Now those switch cards are going to be live potential draws for the game winner. That's all Vinny needs here to close this out. Let's see if he can get it. 1 card to draw. Is it a switch card? Yes, it is!
Right off the top, bringing the Giratina V-Star into the active, and that is 2-0 versus Snorlax Stall.
Wow, what?
There it is. I mean, that is the... That's Snorlax and Giratina V. I mean, if you've got the right combination of switch carts, switches, just, switching options, like the jet energy as well is super crucial there. Any deck can definitely go up against the Snorlax. I think it's when you don't have those. And we saw that at a regionals in 2023. I think it was maybe Stuttgart or somebody, one of the regionals. Snorlax won, and I think it just wasn't being respected as a deck, and so the next regionals everybody came ready with switching options, and it's just not done as well then. So yeah, it's a very interesting way of playing the control stall deck of it all. It's not how I prefer to play, but you know, it is what it is.